Hey all you happy lost souls. This is going to be a pretty quick video, but rather interesting. So in many of my videos I've discussed the vast timeline these artifacts kind of spanned, probably 60,000 years ago all the way up to 300 years ago. And they all come from the Pennypack and the Wissahickon Creek. They're like the two main find areas, but about 90% is Wissahickon. But what I want to talk about is this tray. These were all found in the Pennypack, but at two different locations. These three were found together, almost placed ritualistically. And this is an extremely... I'm going to put this down because I got to use that other phone to show you guys something. But this is granite. It's a very, very hard tool to work with. And you can see the fluting. This was a composite tool. It's dull now. It was probably polished to a high shine. This is semi-precious. Another. It's got two fluting here, and here it's fluted. I don't know. They're very bizarre tools. I don't know really how to place these. And they're old, but they were almost placed ceremonially. These are the three that are incredible. These are magnetite. And this has clearly been worked. It's a hammerhead. And you can see they heat it and pounded it on the back to get this almost side profile, and then it's fluted. It was a hammer. It sat in something. But I think whoever was using this, and the Olmecs, a few magnetized lodestones and pieces of hematite, which oddly we find a lot of hematite artifacts. I have them in another tray. This is before the Greeks, who were probably the first known to work with magnets. This is far, far back. These artifacts are ancient, old. I want to say, 7,000 years ago. From the understanding of where they're found, and you see these people working with the same type of shapes and these very rough, coarse materials. But this magnetite is crazy. I'm going to show you this. This magnetite is so magnetic, and it could have multiple uses, including a primitive, easy to make compass with a little bit of water and a floating object, and something to use as a pin. But if we get this metal detecting app at a certain point, we're at a very high magnetic field, and get this with this magnetite. And certain spots are more load bearing than others. We're getting a pretty high rating. It's weak on this one. This one is extremely high, and it seems that this crease, this point, almost magnifies it. Just it's pretty baffling. This app is not the best, but let's get it away real quick. Let it reset. It's a normal. It's time now. It's picking up too much of the stuff around it. Here, let me isolate it real quick. This thing, and the first time you get away from everything. See right in here. Isn't that crazy? So this crease right here has amplified the magnetism. And just the shape of it is so crazy. I don't know what they knew that we didn't. That's my point. The other thing these could be used for is methods to detect ore, especially iron ores, which would lead you to find things like tin. And why tin is so important, that was more valuable than gold, especially during the Bronze Age and the copper woodworking became a thing. And what we find again and again in conjunction with these other artifacts, now this is southeast Pennsylvania. We're about 17, 18 miles outside of Philadelphia. These are the tributaries going to the Delaware. Well, some of them go to the Schuylkill, then to the Delaware, but they all go to the Delaware. But you see what this is right here? This is very tin rich. This is a lot of tin in here, along with some nickel and other things, but a lot of tin. See a ton of tin. And then you get into more of these coppers. A lot of copper. But I think they were mainly after this stuff here. And you find it very pure in certain areas. Just pure tin. The area is rich in all these things. You get your mercury, sulfates, and silvers, and you get this rich paleogorskite clays. These all have large amounts of mercury and silver in them. These crazy quartz knives that are this high, rich in silver. Like I said, the silver mine legend of the Pennypack and of the southeast Pennsylvania, I believe I found the mines because I did. They're not very accessible, and some of them aren't on public land either. So you're not going to get rich, I don't think, on silver, but there is a vast amount of artifacts ranging like from this weird time period where you see all these pressure flaking tools with this obvious, this patina, this artifact patina. I mean, we even have fossilized bones. This is the end of a bone. I'm not great with bones. I can just tell you that this is a fossilized bone that is now rock, but it almost still has this ochre staining on it, which is a practice done by almost every ancient culture that had a spiritual belief. They would just cover the body in ochre, which is like this red mineral. It's toxic, I believe. But you find these pointers like this. Right here you have this pointer that is tin. It's essentially a piece of tin here. And if you use this in conjunction with something like this, you have a compass. All you need is a little bowl of water, or the stream itself. You can find these examples of these strange pointers. So, they obviously had an understanding of like iron-rich ore, like this primitive knowledge, like this is a hardened, heat-treated pick. Obviously, you've got the tie down on the back, you got and obviously there's a cutting edge too. This is more for working with wood. And we find this at what I call aka the Salutrian site. This stuff is found at the Terwood site. I have like 6 main sites along the Pennypack. The other creeks I don't really have specific search areas. They've just been walks. And then I'm in Wissahickon Valley a lot. I used to be down there a lot for college too. And I noticed a lot of things. This tray here, these artifacts are from PlayWiki and Chamonix. So this stuff and this stuff up top here. And the only other artifacts that I have that are not from the Pennypack in Wissahickon are these two guys. And these guys were found in a plow field right near the Little Neshaminy, which is one of the tributaries off the Neshaminy. The Neshaminy literally, I think it translates into stream of mirrors, or stream that mirrors, or two streams, because it doubled back on itself so much. It's almost like there's always two streams when you're in the Chamonix, or there's just one there, and if you cut across the woods, there's another stream running next to it. It's very odd, but it's just how much it bends and winds. That creek consists of this high quality green stone. Some people call it poor man's slate. And you see this beautifully just flattened and polished sharpener, multiple edges. You see these crazy little pokers, and This area is very rich in beaver. There's still ancestral beaver in this area, so obviously there's a lot of that going on. This was found in a Play Wiki site, and as soon as I walked down, I saw this big goosehead effigy stone, and it was on top of this like mound type thing with a little path that went down to obviously an old fishing site that was ancient. And you can tell by how rocks are stacked, and there's old weirs even from colonial time, and then yada yada yada. But you find stuff more of the Delaware tribes. You find these little tiny points that were more for like blowgun hunting, little small prey, even fish possibly. And then you find these things very cool when you can find something that's been worked and has a hole through it like that. But yeah, very cool. There's tons of artifacts in this Chamonix. That place is loaded too because there's spots, And I've had videos prior that have spoke about how you find artifacts. Go to meandering streams that have Native American place names. Find old religious areas near water, because sad to say, but where one culture worships, when a new one comes in and wants to get rid of the old ideas, they put the religion right on top of the sacred sites of the prior to erase the idea of them. You can also look at some of the plant life. You can look at the way the stream flows. Fishing holes in meandering creeks have been ancestral a lot of times. Now the pennypack changes like crazy. There could be an island there one year. We used to go to a place called the Island near the one artifact site. It's a beautiful little island, and it was clearly a man-made weir that went around it in ancient times, or it was an old beaver dam. And when beavers got hunted and killed almost to extinction during the craze for beaver hats in Europe, drove the price a couple times higher than gold, created the beaver wars and French and Indian wars and the continual exploitation of resources. I mean, it started way back with the early settlers getting to Roanoke, and the first thing they saw was sassafras, and oh my God, they're rich on sassafras because that was the cure then, or the thought to be cure for syphilis, which was wreaking havoc. So sassafras was like the first big export exploitation. Anyway, I digress. This is from a much older ancient time, and I really think this is associated with the people that build all these weird, crazy stone structures up the East Coast. I have seen some firsthand on private land up in, I guess you'd call it Towanda, that area of PA. Just these giant stone walls that went forever. Then these big dolems, 2 big stones with a flat stone on top, like chambers and stuff. And the explanation to me when I asked everybody up there the history of it, they said, oh, well, that's an ancient potato field. We have no idea who cleared the field to plant these potatoes. Nobody does. The other explanation was, well, when they put this power line in, they moved all these slabs. There's no point to move the slabs. You're just putting power lines in. They're just stacked on top of a hill overlooking somebody's ancient crops. Now, this is very reminiscent to Proto-Celtic, the ancient people that built Stonehenge, and we know that's from around 5000 BC. The other cultures that made dolems and burial chambers and rock ring circles were the Aegeans, the Phoenicians and Sea people, originally thought to be the first people that really made these dolems and chambers and burial mounds of the giants and whatnot. No, they were only about 1200 to maybe at the latest 2500 BCE, whereas Stonehenge is obviously 5000 BC, and something was much older there prior. That was probably wood. There's a wooden henge and a Stonehenge. It seems this very Mother Earth, fertility Earth type culture is very subliminally druidic and druid something to it. I don't know what these weird chambers were used for. Everyone speculates they were root cellars or this, or that. I don't know, because I don't know why these walls run for miles, and we don't know really why. we don't know how the land looked back then and what they were doing, but I can say it was the same people that were in Stonehenge were on the east coast of North America at some point. This could go back to even something crazier. And if you listen to guys like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, you might have seen him on Joe Rogan. Randall Carlson is pretty much a closet genius with geology, and he kind of teamed up with Graham Hancock, who does the whole fingerprints of the gods, the whole believing there was this ancient advanced culture prior to when we think there was, and then we find things like Göbekli Tepe and Göbekli Tepe, yeah, I think that's how you say it, over near Turkey, and we're finding things that are 10,000 years old now that has archaeology saying, oh well, hunter-gatherers couldn't have really organized to do this, but we didn't think planning was around yet, and we don't know because we weren't there. We don't have a time machine, and a lot of crazy things happened. You see this crazy decline in Mesoamerica in like 1000 AD. Everything just collapses, including the Mayan civilization. Well, that was right around when Krakatoa happened, and it created like a nuclear winter for years. I think maybe they got upset with their gods when the sun stopped shining, and they kind of turned on their elite or ruling class, kind of overthrew everything from these mound cities. And that's what I want to get into. These magnetite artifacts, they're found in mounds down in Poverty Point, but they're more like plumes for fishing, or weighted plumes. But it is the knowledge that this is venerated, the knowledge that cutting the stone like this enhances the magnetism exponentially. This was probably just dipped into thing. This is probably so cherished, and it was left with these other artifacts together. And this amazing piece, it's almost the effigy of a head, but it is a pointer, and it is magnetic. And kind of the same exact magnetite as this here. And another piece of magnetite that has to be cleaned more, but you see the sparkle. This and this were found right near the Subscrine quarry site. But there's also, in that area, there's a lot of mounds on top of hillsides overlooking streams. And the crazy thing about the Subscrine quarry site, and I'll do another live video at the site, there's this crazy stone, like megalithic looking bench, I call it the throne, that sits on top of the hill that overlooks the quarry site, almost as if in ancient times there was somebody driving people down there to quarry the rock. And this stone trade was crazy then, but it looks to me, with things like this, artifacts like this, that the Mesoamerica was much more widespread. You had Gahota, this crazy mound city, where we can see the evidence of these crazy structures and mounds, but there's mounds all over. There's mounds in Pittsburgh, there's mounds in Lancaster County. There's probably been tons of mounds around. There's mounds around here that have been knocked down, or they're on private land, and people just don't care about it enough. But these artifacts here, there's extremely magnetic, for lack of better terms, it's a magnetic hammerhead. But I think they had this deeper purpose. I think they were used for navigation. And I think what you see with these people that built Stonehenge and built in I guess it's Vermont, or the Stonehenge in America, which looks extremely Mithraic, because there's a chamber that literally looks like it is for a Torabolium, which is like the baptism of, you see the bull again, which is this carryover, and it goes into the Aegeans, it goes into oh god, I can't even think, the Minoans, who worship the bull, is ancient, and then the Mithraic, it was weird, they like kept their worship of the bull, and they're like ritualistic pagan ways, but then they had this Christ-like figure with a different name that I can't remember. It's just a bizarre cult, you know. But the amount of clearing, building of these crazy stone walls all through New England, all through upper state PA, New York, even parts of Jersey, and these crazy dolmens and what are clearly burial chambers of some sort, or chambers from that same culture. There's cairns. But what I'm getting at is there was way too much work. You're talking about more stone, was 4 times more stone was moved and put in place than during the construction of the pyramids. So there had to be a vast amount of people. This wasn't. And if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, which I like to do, what could these stone chambers be if they're not root cellars, if they're not kilns, if they're not shelters? Well, there's a couple things. In ancient proto-Celtic, proto-Roman, when the Romans tried to invade, they came to find these massive hill forts with these nice stone structures on top of big hills, and that eventually turned into brocks, which eventually turned into castles. You see a lot of like hill fort type construction going on, and you would see these hill forts constructed at the site of a town or a village or an area or kingdom that needed protection. And that is almost Dark Age, like 300, 200, 400, 500 AD, time where nothing's written about. People were on the move then. The world was not in a good place, and boats got a lot better then. So could it be from that time? No. I think this is much older. This is from something that I don't know. This is from the people that built those Stonehenges over there. Maybe this had way better boats, or if you're Randall Carlson's notion that like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Azores, sunk and went down 10,000 years ago. It was this ridge, there's this whole almost continent that was in the middle of the Atlantic that just sunk. And this matches the legends of the Irish, the Britons, that an island known as High Brazil sunk, and it comes sometimes rises, filled with these advanced gods, magicians, with all kinds of technology. It was in the middle of the Atlantic, it sunk. They were advanced, they were raiding the Egyptians. There was speaking Homer's epics about wars 10,000 years ago with the 10 kings of Atlantis. And the Atlantic Ocean is named after the Atlanteans. If that were the case and the island sunk, a lot of people would still be on boats, because a lot of these people spend a lot of their lives on boats. And I think even prior to them sinking, they had created colonies over here and colonized the coast, just like they did everywhere else. They were maritime culture. I think they influenced Mesoamerica, South America. I don't know who these people were, beaker people. I don't know what you want to call them, but they didn't quite work with metal, but they were getting there. And they were leaving things at the streams as offerings. And then I believe the culture a couple thousand years after that came along, Native Americans, when they settled the area, saw all these beautiful things left areas, or they just practiced and worshiped the same thing because of the importance of it. Remember, the pennypack is well-born. It comes from natural water born under limestone aquifers in current Warminster, Pennsylvania. It bubbles up out of the ground and branches out into a spider web, into a watershed. And the main stream eventually goes to the Delaware. It flows uphill. It's these dark pools that just seem to go forever. They could be cenotes, because there's a lot of caves back there. We know the Mayans worship this, and we know this is a very Mesoamerican thing. The Olmecs use this. The people down at Poverty Point, along Tennessee, right near, I think Mississippi, right near UCLA, or US, the University of Louisiana. So strange stuff. I don't know if anyone else has found magnetite artifacts, but that is extremely rare. This is a naturally occurring magnetite. Now, I can tell you the only place we can really get that close to here would be upstate New York, near the falls, which would kind of feed into the Susquehannock notion, but it also just feeds into a notion that someone knew about this and exploited it. That's not the only magnetite. That's just where it commonly is around here. And the penny bag is so crazy. I'm sure there's some back there as well, naturally, because the mineralization and the geology is insane back there. So as to with the Wissahickon, and as these watersheds mingle with one another, so does their geology. But we see the same people, the same area, and when I saw that ancient Olgum in right near what appears to be a collapsed chamber with a dolom-like entrance with the two big slabs, right near this crazy place called Devil's Pool in the Wissahickon, my mind started rolling, you know, and then you just can't explain all these structures that are identical to what you see in, and we could test it. There's different ways to test, you know, different things. These people are crazy navigators, though, and that's what I want to get at. They're building these things a lot of times for navigation, and the druids or priests or whoever these people's elite were the ones that held the knowledge of how to use the stars to get us back home, or how to get us to this place or that place. And this would be extremely important in aiding them. Now that there's multiple examples of actual worked magnetite, and this is a worked object shaped purposely, it almost looks like a an effigy or bird head or something like that. Who knows? Snake head, but obviously a pointer magnetic, and this is just a giant hammerhead that is extremely magnetic because it's magnetite. And this is like a rich, it's almost like got silver in it, but this is like a granite, a really beautiful quartzite, and once it's polished, you could hear how hard it is, almost like ceramic. But I believe these were polished to this high shine. They probably might have had some type of inscription on them or something, or that is where the tools were held in place by what was holding them in place. They were left purposely. And I'm going to have a whole segment on something called ghost trees. These crazy birch trees, bright white like skeletons, but planted at perfect areas along the creek, almost used as a navigation tool because you can see them so clearly. You have to get careful though, because these trees were often planted at driveways and also used to denote old property lines, so they could just be old colonial homes that were destroyed a long time ago. When you start finding daffodils and flowers that should be in a garden bed popping up in the middle of the woods, you kind of got to question things. Oh, there might have been there's probably a garden here at someone's old house at some point, a long time ago. As metal detector tip, you know, you can metal detect areas like that. Find old cellars and things like that. If you're into that kind of thing, I'm more into the rock stuff, but more into the whole mystery of why in this area is there stuff, continual activity in this area. They were after metal, and we know that because of all the metal in the area. But to find these primitive prospecting / navigational tools being clearly understood and used is mind-blowing. And I really think that's from about just where and how it was found. So it was under a root system that had kind of gotten pushed and pulled, but it was vaulted. It was left intact into this little cove almost that got washed out. Niche, artifactual niche. It was left and it was washed out, And when things get washed out like that and they're left together, they often get washed out together. This was like here, this is up here, and this I saw first, right by my feet. These I found in a different spot together. But same context, under the root system of one of these crazy, what I call ghost trees. Now these trees might be a couple hundred years old, but were they continually planted? We know the Susquehanna buried their people along streams and mounds a lot of times with the seeds of a tree in a sack, and the tree would grow out and consume their body. This is how their kings and leaders would be buried. So I had this weird theory about these ghost trees. They could also be connected to something colonial. Like I did a few of those things on the Knights of the Golden Circle. But a lot of cultures worshipped and loved the forest and the trees, especially the Celts. I mean, their whole language of Ogham was based on trees. Their naming system for their people were based on trees. But it's astonishing. But I don't really know. But I love y'all. Please subscribe. And starting to get through some of the pottery finds here. Some stuff more from like the Mississippi Valley, but then you got more of this like Mayan blue type stuff. Turn that brightness up a little bit. It's just that shocking blue. You just don't see that on anything. Not like European or it's mezzo. I found this beautiful. I love when I find things that aren't finished. See, this arrowhead is completely flaked. The stem, it's bifacially flaked down. One side's flattened. This side isn't done yet. And I really see this bright red stuff running. This was reacted bright red to a silver test because I knew there's silver in this. This is found right near the mine site. Not mine, like as in silver mine, so don't get confused as to what I'm saying. I love when you find little artifacts like this. And you know that it's an artifact because of the patina. It's been so worn by somebody's fingers and all that smoothing and that shining. And this is just a stone for throwing at prey or a slingshot type stone. You find so many cool little artifact preforms back there for arrowheads. And here's a lodestone here. So this is a hematite based clay. It's probably very magnetic. This looks like a little hammer almost for really fine work. But it could also be another pointer for magnetic, for the compass. And this could